Hey, what's everyone? What's up, everybody? Sorry, Kokou here. We're about to start the show. Another Thursday Thoughts type show. The purpose of the Thursday Thoughts show is based on um, Agave teaching of you write down your thoughts in a journal. Basically, what people call journaling today. Write down your thoughts, and every so often you decide the interval of time, a month, 2 months, three, six, whatever. You go over your thoughts, go over the things you've read, the things that you've jotted down in your journal, and kind of like edify your own self with the things that you've learned over the course of your life during that period of time. And so this show is an expression of that. Tonight's show, we're talking about being competitive. The first show of the Thursday Thought segment, we discussed an abundance mindset. Last week we discussed a suicide prevention, and it builds off of that abundance, or rather the scarcity mindset. And so being competitive builds off of this idea of stop with the scarcity mindset. We'll talk more about it on the other side. I see the learning curve is here saying greetings to the learning curve as well. Let's start the show. On the other side, we'll get to this little discussion.
You are listening to the Bitter Medicine Podcast on KWAZ Radio. Welcome to the Bitter Medicine Podcast, where it's all about Black empowerment. Our show focuses on Black news and entertainment, arts, science, economics, history, people, and strategies that uplift, empower, and motivate Africans within the diaspora. And now, your host, whose favorite color is black, Kokou.
Welcome back to the Bitter Medicine Podcast. I am your host, Kokou. Just want to remind you guys before we get the show rolling that this show is part of a podcast network called KWAZ Radio. There are other shows on the network you are invited to tune into.
This is D Webb with the Harsh Reality Podcast, asking you to tune in where we tackle the news of the day that affects our community, only on KWAZ Radio.
Peace, family. This is Oni, inviting you to listen to the Pro-Black Perspective, where Black problems are addressed with Black solutions.
Greetings, fam. Tune in to The Learning Curve with me, the Revolutionary Matron on KWAZ Radio.
You are listening to the Bitter Medicine Podcast on KWAZ Radio.
Yes, indeed. We're back. You know who it is. This is the host, Kokou. So we're talking about being competitive. And again, this builds off of the first episode of the Thursday Thoughts Show, right? About abundance and scarcity mindsets. Have you all ever heard the phrase, and I'm sure you have you ever heard the phrase, a rising tide lifts all boats? That is an economic idea that means that general improvements in an area, an industry, or community will benefit all. My goal is to improve the entire community by raising those around me. That's why I do the Bitter Medicine Podcast. That's why I read those papers. That's why I do the Saturday Night Shoot the Breeze. And that's why I do this show. It's to improve the entire community by raising everyone else's thinking around me. And I love to do it. Why? I don't have a scarcity mindset. I want to see everyone win. around me, every black person around me win. And I'm cool with that. And you could win 10 times more than me, 100 times more than me, provided that you still have a love for, a care for, and a concern for your community, your African community. Man, go out there and kill it. Do well. And don't forget your people. Raise everyone else up around you. Start with your family. I don't mind you being, um, family first. Then expand out to your neighbors and your community at large, and wherever it is that there's other black people. I look forward to that. Remember, the scarcity mindset is an idea that a man is somehow losing by another man's gain. Let me repeat that one more again. The scarcity mindset is an idea that a man is somehow losing by another man's gain. It says that there's only a finite or small amount of success to reach in a certain industry or community, etc. And if one person reaches this, then everyone else loses. This is how these Eurasians work when it comes to other people groups. Not only is this scarcity mindset, the idea behind the scarcity mindset false, but it's toxic as fuck. Mr. Untouchable is here saying he's putting in work but listening in. I appreciate you, bro. I appreciate you for sure. Right? Make sure you guys hit the like button on the video whenever you're listening to this. Right? So not only is that mindset that only one person could win, not only is it false, but it's toxic. It's a mindset that only sees short term and tends to promote jealousy at other people's success. Look at what happens in Hollywood, in comedy, where only one funny Negro can occur at a time. You feel me? So Kevin Hart is the man at a period of time, and you have all these things coming, all these beefs coming up with Cat Williams and whatnot. That's a scarcity mindset. And this white boy makes sure that you have that scarcity mindset. So you tear each other down. The abundance mindset, on the other hand, thinks win-win. It encourages happiness for others' achievements and has a deeper sense of meaning than self. People with the abundance mindset tend to express gratitude and be more successful. Let me say that one more again. People with the abundance mindset tend to express gratitude and be more successful. They tend to compete. People with an abundance mindset tend to compete. They're competitors. I'll give you an example. I'm in New York City, right? I'm in New York City. There's a lot of people groups in New York City, of course. One of these people groups are Asians, particularly Chinese people. Regardless of competition, Asians or Chinese people will set up shop right next to each other. If you're familiar with New York, I can't speak authoritatively on any other state, but or any other city, I should say. But if you've been in New York City a bit, you know what I'm saying is true. A Chinaman will have a restaurant on this corner, and there'll be another Chinaman across the street with another restaurant. They call that clustering, by the way. Right? The Chinese restaurateurs in New York City have no problem with clustering. Clustering allows them to benefit in three main ways. Number one, it increases each business's productivity level. They're competing. So it makes them get on their toes. Like Michael Jordan would say, you certain people play on their toes. Makes you get up on your toes. Number two, it speeds up the pace for innovation. For example, these Chinese restaurants, it's not uncommon for some years now to walk in one Chinese restaurant and they're selling burritos. They're selling Mexican food. They're selling Japanese food. They're selling some fusion of foods. Because they're being competitive. They're trying to stay ahead or at least stay even with the others. Third of the three main ways that clustering allows these folks to benefit. It incentivizes other Asians to start a new business in the area or your area, which it ain't even your area. When other Asians, when other Chinese see, wait, these guys are doing kind of good over here, that incentivizes them to say, hey, I could come over here and get a share of this market too. They don't shy away from being competitive. And they have the abundance mindset. They figure out, well, okay, I'm going to start this business, and if I got to pivot, if I got to innovate and infuse new, different cuisines and all this kind of stuff, I got to sell other people's food along with my Chinese food, they will do it. They're not running away from competition. Why are you? So competitiveness, let's talk about that for a bit here. Competitiveness is of course, it comes from the word compete. To compete means to strive to gain or win something by defeating or establishing superiority over others who are trying to do the same. Let me say that one more time. To compete means to strive to or gain or win something by defeating others or establishing your superiority over others who are trying to do the same. Competitiveness is a skill. Do you understand that? Competitiveness is a skill. It's an ability. And you use it to contend with your rivals for the same objective or prize. If you're not competing in life, you will be booted out of the race, if not totally outclassed by everyone else. Here's my question for you guys. Don't you want us to be winners? Because if you're not competing, you're a loser. Don't you want us to be winners? Don't you want us to be powerful? To be self-determining? Why is it that you're okay with not being competitive? Why are you not in the race? And guess what? You are being outclassed as it currently stands. You think businesses aren't competing for the best workers, for the best of the raw materials, for the best customers, etc.? Of course they are. You think most workers aren't competing? And in fact, most workers are competing for limited jobs. But what do they do? What do the competitive guys do? They're doing various things to stay competitive so that they can either gain these new jobs or at least retain them. And more on that later. But we know this, don't we? If you're here with me right now in the chat, do we know this? One is yes, two is no. The learning curve said F. I don't know what F means, right? We know this already, don't we? So why, as a people, aren't we being competitive? What do you guys think is the reason? What do you guys think is the reason why our folks, black folks, African people, are not really being competitive? Sure, one or two people here and there are excelling and becoming the first Harvard Law School president or some such shit like that. Sure, we're becoming the first black women to graduate with a PhD in physics somewhere. Sure. But that's individual achievements. And by the way, we got to stop holding up individual achievements as if it means that the race is doing well. One of the complaints that the ADOS FBA people have is that you'll see Nigerians or whatever group of Africans somewhere in the Caribbean or wherever will always push these articles about the first Nigerian or the first Ghanaian or the first Bahamian or whatever, right? Not realizing, I think, that it doesn't matter. This one person doing whatever they're doing, usually doing something for Eurasians to pat them on the head, that does nothing for us. When I'm talking about being competitive, I'm talking about as a people. I'm talking about creating a culture and creating an economy, creating tools for self-determination that will allow you to stand shoulder to shoulder with anyone, if not head above shoulders versus the other people groups out there. The learning curve says depression and discouragement. Collectively, we sick. Those are some of the things as to why, and she's right, by the way. And if you don't know, that's the revolutionary matron from the Learning Curve podcast. Depression and discouragement. I'm going to talk about that after the station ID here that's coming up in a few seconds. There's a couple of reasons. And frankly, we can't let those reasons hold us back. It's time for us to get, if you hear my voice, one of the things I try to do personally is I try to show people by my own example. If I tell you I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it. It might take me a little long to do it or whatever, but I'm going to get it done. If I have a schedule that I'm supposed to hold to, I'm going to hold that schedule for the most part. My word is my bond. So why aren't we being competitive? We'll talk about that. A couple of reasons that I think on the other side of this station ID break.
You are listening to the Bitter Medicine Podcast on KWAZ Radio.
This is D Webb with the Harsh Reality Podcast, asking you to tune in where we tackle the news of the day that affects our community, only on KWAZ Radio.
Peace, family. This is Oni, inviting you to listen to the pro-black perspective, where black problems are addressed with black solutions.
Greetings, fam. Tune in to The Learning Curve with me, the revolutionary matron on KWAZ Radio.
You are listening to the Bitter Medicine Podcast on KWAZ Radio.
Have you ever considered joining KWAZ Radio? Each of our hosts shares their unique perspective with you. You might have a perspective that needs to be shared. If that's true, hit us up at kwaz.radio@gmail.com. What are you gonna do? What you gonna do?
Welcome back to the Thursday Thoughts segment of the Bitter Medicine Podcast. I am your host, Kokou. We're talking about being competitive. And there's a build up here. If you're following the last couple of weeks, we're talking abundance mindset. We're talking suicide prevention. We're talking being competitive today. And the last thing I talked about before the commercial break was why is it we're not doing what we need to do to be competitive? The learning curve said depression and discouragement. Collectively, we're sick. By the way, I want to remind you guys that we do have a merch store at KWAZ Radio. Make sure you guys support the other shows on KWAZ Radio by purchasing an item from the merch store. Most of the hosts on KWAZ Radio have a Cash App. Hit them something. You know what I mean? Hit them something. Practice some reciprocity. You like their shows? Show a little appreciation. It doesn't take much to show appreciation, right? But we're talking about the reasons why Black folks aren't being competitive. And you probably know I'm going to say this. Well, scarcity mindset is one reason. A lot of our folks have a scarcity mindset, but there's other things too. A lot of us have been defeated since birth. Born to low energy individuals. A lot of us, let me say it again, a lot of us have been defeated since we were born because we were born to low energy, do nothing individuals. Our elders have failed. So there's no examples of being competitive, of winning, of having abundance. I'm going to add here the matron's depression and discouragement kind of builds off of those things too. Low energy individuals will discourage you. The naysayers, they will discourage you from some shit. A big reason why we don't compete, to be real with y'all today, because competition is difficult. It's hard work. And very importantly, competition is stressful. That frustration is an almost overwhelming negative influence on your sense of self. I get it. It's a difficult thing to be in competition. It's stressful. The stress takes a lot of energy away from your body, your mind, and soul. But guess what? You got to do it. Because on the other side of that competition, on the winning end of it, there's benefit. The thing about competition, and this is heavy too, competition never ends. Eurasians didn't dominate our people 500 years ago and just let up. That they just stopped. No. They're doing the work to continue dominating us. They're being competitive. When Mansa Musa was out here clout chasing, showing off all the gold and Negro trinkets he had, this white boy looked at that shit and said, nah, I want to be there. And this old clown ass dude went and ushered in What will be our downfall? Let's keep it real. Cloud chasing, showing off gold and all this shit. You don't go around nobody. I was watching a comedy the other day, and a guy is set in New York City. A guy walks out into the street. He needs change for 100 or to break 100 or whatever. And he's on a New York street shouting out, "Hey, anyone got change for 100?" And his friend is there and is like, "Are you crazy? People will kill us for that." Here goes Mansa Musa out here, rocking gold everywhere. But the point is, the Eurasian didn't just dominate our ancestors and say, "Okay, we did it today, we're done, let's let up." No, they kept their foot on people's throats. They're savages and they're competitors. Listen, people or people groups that lack competitiveness are those that you will find at the bottom. Even individuals who lack some level of competitiveness, you'll find them at the bottom. Before I go, I just want to say that there's a couple things you could do on being competitive. Work on your skills, people. For real. Study a little bit more. Study various fields. This is what Gavi promoted. Read more. Every one of us should have a library where we're not reading Eric Jerome Dickey books. We're supposed to be reading different thought, political, economic, spiritual, even if it's African centered, otherwise, right? Follow certain thought leaders. You got a couple of here on KWAZ Radio. Follow the Revolutionary Matron at the Learning Curve podcast. Follow D Webb and them. D Webb, L McGill, Lero. Right. Follow them. Follow Oni Tasse from the pro-black perspective. Learn a few things. Don't try to be a jack of all trades, because we know where that ends up at. But be knowledgeable on a couple of things. Follow Mr. Untouchable, for example. Follow our Urzuli, right? Bobby. Follow the people who hang around people who think and study and learn. By the way, I put up a community tab post because I got something in the works with Onita say. I got something in the works where we might be able to offer a Saturday morning type show. Well, I'm thinking it's a Saturday morning type thing to do. You know, we could do a live stream where Oni has this person, a lady from Kenya, who's willing to instruct us in Kiswahili. So I put up a community tab post, and you guys, if you're following me, if you're subscribed to me, you guys should be clicking that bell to get all notifications for all things. I put up a community post tab the other day that says, if we do a Saturday morning show, Learning Kiswahili, would you tune in? And in parentheses, it says we would ask for tips for the instructor, because I want to make that clear. Practice reciprocity. This lady ain't just going to come and teach us for nothing. It only got 3 votes so far, so it's not the best statistical outcome yet. So if you haven't voted yet, make sure you go ahead and vote. But right now, of the 3 votes, 2 people said hell yes. The options was hell yes, maybe, and nah, hard pass. One of the 3 people said nah, hard pass. I had to chuckle to myself and ask, well, why would someone say nah, hard pass? I mean, of course, it's an option, but why would you choose that option? 9 times out of 10 is because folks just ain't want to compete. It's hard to learn a language. It could be that they don't want to tip either. which is also a part of that scarcity mindset, right? Bobby E. Wright is in the chat right now. Bobby E. Wright says, greetings, KWAZ and Bitter Medicine. I'm for the Kiswahili lessons. I appreciate, you see, that's a guy I could rock with. Bobby E. Wright is a long-time listener. I could rock with Bobby E. Wright. Mr. Untouchable and others. There's a plethora of others as well. But someone really voted and said, nah, hard pass. Right? Work on your skills. Develop a competitor's mindset. Your ability to remain competitive depends on a prepared mindset, by the way. If you look at yourself as a warrior who never gives up until all the enemies are conquered, then you're in the right mindset, right? Have that mindset of, I can do better, and always work hard to prove it. Be purposeful. Have a purpose. Every person who possesses the genuine competitiveness is a goal setter. Once an objective is achieved, they set another. D-Web from the Harsh Reality podcast talks about this all the time. He has talked about it on the Harsh Reality podcast. By the way, check out the most recent episode that dropped on Tuesday of the Harsh Reality podcast. Good show. Good episode. Check it out. But he's talked about this in the past. He's also talked about this on the Saturday Night Shoot the Breeze, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, every Saturday. You know what it is. He's talked about how, like, these Asians, these Chinese in particular, I believe, they have a 1,000-year plan. Competition teaches preparation. This Chinaman remembers when he was a goofball in U.S. cinema. He remembers when he was the lowly dishwasher and all this old shit. And what did they do? They created their own movie houses in their countries. They put out these martial arts to the point where a lot of us grew up thinking that's how Chinese people fight. That's how Asians fight. That's not how they fight. They fight just like me and you. But they're competitors. They ain't gonna sit back and just allow you to clown them in cinema. They're gonna put out their own cinema. They're gonna create the images that they want for their people to have, like Razuli talked about on the show, on the Shoot the Breeze recently. You gotta also study your history. Understand your historical pros and cons. I talked about Mansa Musa from history. That was some whole shit he did back in the day. Flossing. Now these people know what kind. If you out here flossing, what does your home country or your homeland have going on? Understand where you've gone wrong as a people in your history. Understand what you did right and build upon it. Finally, because again, I like to keep these shows short on Thursdays. Successful people don't allow a failure to define who they are. Yes, we messed up. We got dominated. But we're not going to let that define us. I'll be damned to consider my history only from a plantation. Only from slavery. Successful people, competitive people, never quit. When you're prepared, there are fewer surprises. And you know how to control the few surprises that do arise. If we were prepared in Flint, ... you wouldn't have a water crisis still some 5, 6, maybe even 7 years later. Remember the saying, the economic saying, survival of the fittest? Only the strong will survive. Survival of the fittest. Only the strong will survive. That's a Wyclef line, right? Lastly, and this is probably the most important thing I could say tonight. Our future is going to need courageous, robust leaders with skills that have been honed by competition. Not this shit that we doing sitting up on social media, naysaying ideas and talking shit back and forth. Our leadership that we're going to need in the future, that we're going to need to be, like I said, courageous leadership. They're going to have skills, or they're going to need to have skills that's been finely tuned by competition. I want to thank all of you guys for tuning in tonight. I want to thank everyone who's in the chat, Bobby Wright, The Learning Curve. Make sure you guys reach out to The Learning Curve. Let the matron know that she's needed and you'd like to hear more from her. Shout out to Mr. Untouchable as well, and anyone else who was here who I did not see here. I hope you guys will share these short episodes. Share them. Right? If you don't like to share the Shoot the Breeze because they're 5 episodes, 5 hours or something like that, I get it. This is a 35-minute show. Share it, discuss it. If there's something you think I missed or misstated or what have you, comment below. And we'll continue the conversation. Anyway, guys, until next time, you guys be good. I'll see you guys on Saturday night for Shoot the Breeze. We're going to curtail some of the nonsense that has gone on recently and give it a clean show, etc. You guys tune in. I'll see you guys next time. Peace.
Thanks for listening to the Bitter Medicine Podcast with your host, Kokou. If you like what you just heard, we hope you pass along our web address, bittermedicineblogs.com, to your friends and colleagues, and share our show to all your social media. Be sure to check out our archive section on our website for previous podcasts. This has been a KWAZ radio production. Join us next time for another session of the Bitter Medicine Podcast. Follow us on Facebook at Bitter Medicine Show, Twitter, Bitter Meds, Tumblr, Bitter Meds, Instagram, Bitter Medicine.